Turn out, a breaking news in Austin overnight. A big change to your voting rights is one step closer to reality. While you were sleeping, the Texas Senate passed a bill with some major restrictions for voting. Michelle Choi has more on what this would mean if it passes.
Guys, some big news if you're just waking up. Overnight, the Texas Senate signed off on a controversial bill that would restrict your voting options. Republicans say Senate Bill 7 would protect elections, while opponents call it voter suppression. One critic equated it to the South's Jim Crow laws because of the impacts they say it could have on minority voters. If SB 7 were to pass the full state house, it would ban drive-through voting, limit early voting hours, and keep election officials from encouraging voters to vote by mail. Those are all things we saw here in Harris County during the presidential election last fall. Another Harris County initiative, 24-hour voting would also be banned, making it harder for shift workers to vote. The move follows a recent law in Georgia that restricts voting access in the state that critics say targets minorities. Big Georgia-based companies like Delta and Coca-Cola are already criticizing that law. Similar criticism is already ramping up here too, and we can be sure Texas will now be square in the national spotlight in this fight over voter rights. The Texas House could vote on a similar measure as early as today, clearing the way for this to become state law. And guys, this is not going to be the last we hear about this.
Definitely not. Michelle, thank you for that. And as soon as we get any updates on these bills, we will send an alert straight to your phone through the KHOU 11 app. And you can also read the full bill right now on khou.com. In just a few hours, we'll be back in the courtroom for the Derek Chauvin trial. And it's been an emotional few days with powerful testimony and also hard to watch video. Xavier is in Minneapolis this morning with a look at what we can expect next. Xavier, good morning.
Steph, the prosecution has now called all the key eyewitnesses to George Floyd's death. They've also shown some incredibly difficult video to watch, and they also released newly, never seen before body cam footage. Prosecutors played video from each of the 4 officers that were involved that day. We know a juror had to take a break, overcome by emotion and stress as well. The question is, what comes next? The state isn't releasing updated witness lists, but they signaled in opening statements what their case looks like. Soon they're going to pivot to some of the big picture context needed to prove the elements of the crimes. Now that includes analyzing use of force and scrutinizing what we see in those body camera videos, as well as diving deep into cause of death, including drug use and medical evidence. We're also learning we likely won't hear anything from a key witness to the evidence, a man who was with Floyd before his death. A court document shows he plans to invoke the 5th Amendment, which allows anyone the right not to self-incriminate. It's Steph, this trial is set to enter a new phase, and we'll be here for all of it again today.
All right, Xavier, thank you. And this trial could have a lasting impact regardless of the outcome. You can get continuous updates online at khou.com and also on the KHOU 11 mobile app. And we will also continue live streaming the trial on our website on Roku, and you can also watch it on Fire TV. Well, President Biden is set to meet with his cabinet today to talk about a key part of his agenda. And Brandy, we're talking about a huge spending plan.
Yeah, Steph, something that's been a pipe dream for many presidents, but President Biden just launched a sprawling plan to rebuild the nation's infrastructure. In Pittsburgh yesterday, he laid out a $2 trillion infrastructure plan. That spending would roll out over 8 years. And the goals here, the Biden administration says it will generate new jobs and help the U.S. transition away from fossil fuels. So how's it all break down? Well, there's $621 billion to improve and replace roads, bridges, public transit, electric vehicle charging stations, and other transportation infrastructure. $111 billion would replace lead water pipes and upgrade sewers. Another $100 billion would expand broadband all over the country. And a similar chunk would upgrade the power grid to deliver clean energy.
We have to move now, because I'm convinced that if we act now, in 50 years, people are going to look back and say, this was the moment that America won the future.
Okay, Brandy, people are probably going to want to know how we're going to pay for this because Congress just passed that huge stimulus package.
Yeah, Steph, the White House wants to raise those funds by increasing the corporate tax rate from 21%, that's what it is now, to 28%, and by hiking taxes on overseas earnings. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell isn't a fan of the plan.
The last thing we need is a big tax increase on top of that. So I just don't like the direction they're headed. It's not one that's designed to get bipartisan support.
The president says he'd like the plan to pass this summer. We'll have to see if it does get bipartisan support or if the administration can push it through along party line stuff. Still a lot of work to do on that one.
Yeah, Brandy, and getting this measure passed isn't the only challenge the Biden administration is facing right now. The crisis at the border continues to grow, and we are getting a firsthand look at the lengths some of these families will go to get into the U.S., hoping for a better life. This is new infrared video from Border Patrol showing alleged human smugglers. Border agents say you are looking at the alleged smugglers right there dropping 2 toddler girls from over a 14-foot border wall. This took place Tuesday evening in New Mexico. Both toddlers were treated and are now in custody of Health and Human Services. And now that same federal agency is drawing Houston into the efforts to house unaccompanied children. The Biden administration is opening a new shelter for immigrant children in Houston. The National Association of Christian Churches will be able to house up to 500 kids. Shelters are now open across the state to cope with the surge of children crossing the border alone. Meanwhile, Governor Abbott heads to the border. He'll hold a news conference on Operation Lone Star, the border smuggling initiative he launched early last month with DPS. He criticized the Biden administration's response to the border crisis. Texas State Trooper Chad Walker has died. Walker was shot during a traffic stop last week in the Texas town of Mejia and had been on life support ever since. He leaves behind a wife and 4 children. The man who shot Walker later killed himself.
A bill that would ban transgender girls from playing public school sports with those born female passed a Texas State Senate committee. Proponents consider the measure, which would codify rules already used by the UIL, a safety issue.
You can pretty much guarantee that a biological male has physical advantages over females.
But critics say it will further isolate and alienate students who are already marginalized.
This bill attacks a problem that's not there and is mean-spirited. It's not based in medical science or medical fact.
All right, it's 6:39. Let's talk about the one thing you need to know in weather. We have a gorgeous day. What a way to start a new month. April 1st today, picture perfect, sunny skies. Now we are starting off pretty chilly this morning. Grab the jacket. We will talk more about our current temps